Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In today's video, we'll learn about Git configuration and Git basic commands. And I hope that you already installed Git. If you didn't install, then go back to my previous video and come back to this video again.
Let's start with Git configuration. So how to see a Git configuration? Git config list. And you can see all the existing configuration in your system. So in Git, every commit needs some metadata like username and email. So let's configure that first. So whenever you use global keyword, then you have to do configuration only once. When we use global keyword, it means that we are configuring it at global level. It means at user level. So basically in Git, we can have configuration at three levels: system level, which is applied to all user level, and repository level. So this global do at user level. So we don't need to do this configuration again and again. And it exists for all the repository for this user. Now let's configure default branch and Vim editor. Okay, we have already configured the configuration. Now let's check this again. Now, as you can see that we already configured default branch, editor, username and email. Now let's check how to see the value of particular config property. As you can see the value of property username. Now let's see how to check the origin of this property. File path of this property user.name. Now if you wanna find out the detail of any git command, you can see this with git help command. Let's check it out. As you can see, now you can see all the options for git commit command, what you can do with this git command. I think we already configure and we learn about git configuration. Now let's do our first commit. Let's create a directory and let's go inside this directory and type git status. When you type git status, as you can see that it's not a git repository, it's just a directory. So to make this as a git repository, we have to run git. So initialize empty git repository. It means now this is not a directory, this is a git repository. Now let's type git status again. Now as you can see that we are on branch main, no commit yet because it's an empty repository. So git status basically gives us the detail of that repository, like what's happening with that repository. Did we add any new file or modified files or need to commit and we are behind the remote branch. So it gives all the details of that repository. Okay, now let's create some file inside this repository. Now let's type git status again. Now as you can see that this is untracked file readme.md. So it means that Git doesn't aware about this readme.md file yet. So let's move this file to staging area. Git add command moves the files to staging area. You can use dot to move all the files, or you can move file by particular file name also, as you can see here, git add file name. Okay, now let's do git commit. When you do git commit, it opens a prompt of Vim editor where you can type your message. Is my first commit. Okay, now I already commit my code. Let's see git status. Now I say that you are on branch main, nothing to commit, working tree is plain. Very good job. You already did your first commit and in part of learning a lot of good stuff about Git. Now let's see how to check the history of repository. As you can see that in our repository, we only commit one time. So you can see like commit this username and email ID. And now let's see how to check the difference between files. Now let's modify our readme file. And type git difference between files. Now as you can see that the difference between two files, like existing files have only hello world and we added plus new changes. So this is going to be added our file. Now in real world you are going to do a lot of changes. It's difficult to see like this. Now let's see how to open this in Vim. Now you can see that it's prompted about to open Vim, and now you can easily see existing files have hello world and we have added new changes. There's a lot of external tools that you can use. You can just configure it and then you can use as a diff tool. In last video, if you remember, we discussed about different states in Git. Now let's see that in action. Let's add new file contribution.md. Now let's type git status again and see what's happening in our repository. So as you can see that now this readme file is in modified state because we did some changes. It's not in untracked state, but because new file still didn't track by Git, so it is in untracked state. So let's move only one file to staging area. Let's move contribution.md. This time let's copy the file name and add. Okay, now let's commit this file. And now let's type git status again. Now as you can see that contribution.md file is already committed, but this file is still in modified state. So whatever file we move to staging area is going to be commit only. It's not going to commit everything. So modified file still is in working directory. And see the commits. So now you can see the commits. It's my first commit and add contribution. Okay, now let's go back. So this shortcut to commit file directly, as you can see here also, git commit a. Let's do that. Modified state testing. Now type git status again. As you can see that now our directory is clean. Okay, now let's see how to undo some changes and rescue you from a tough position. Let's first learn amend command. So suppose you commit a code little early and you want to update something. Okay, let's do some changes and commit a code first. Now let's type git status. It's in modified state. If you remember the shortcut command git commit a and learning unknown. Okay, now if you see git log, the history of all git commits, you see that this is already committed. Now let's see how the amend command works. Now you have to update something that you forgot to do. Let's do some changes again in the new file. Okay, changes. Now first let's check the status. It's in modified state. Now let's add this file first and let's type git commit amend. Now this will open the prompt again, Vim editor, and you can type new learning amend. Now when you see the history, now if you see the history, you will see that old commit doesn't exist anymore. You will end up with a single commit instead of two. One tip, don't use it for big changes. You can use it for typos or maybe to change the commit message. Now let's update readme file again. Now you can type git status again and you will see that this file is in modified state. Now suppose you want to discard changes and you want to up to date working directly. You don't want to keep these changes. As you can see here also, git restore file name to discard changes in working directory. So just type git restore and you can type git status and you can see that now your working directory is clean. If you are using old version, maybe you can see here checkout command. So you can use checkout instead of restore. Now let's suppose you stage the changes and you want to roll back to working directly. How to do? Let's update our file again. Now type git status and you can see that it's a modified. Now move this file to staging area. Now type git status again and you can see that there is a command, use git restore stage file name to unstage. So if you want to move this file from staging area to working directory again, just use this command. Now type git status again and you will see that it's again in working directory. Okay, now let's see how to roll back if you already commit your code. Now we have to roll back commit. Let's do some changes in the readme file again. Now type git status and let's see. So it's in modified state. Let's use this shortcut now again. Git commit a m for message. So let's do restore changes. Okay, now if you do git status, you will see working directory is clean. Git log to check the history and you will see all the commit that happened to this repository and you see that restore changes that we did recently. Now suppose if you don't want these changes, you don't want this commit. So how we can roll back? Okay, you have to type git reset soft head tilt 1 and now if you see the logs again, that commit is already rolled back and you can check its status and you will see that the changes are staged. Now you can go back, restore the state changes to working directory and working directory checkout, and you are in clean state. Okay, let's commit this code and okay, now if you do git status, and you can see that our branch is up to date. Okay, now let's see how to remove and rename a file in Git. So let's first remove a contribution empty file. Now type git status. You will see that this file is deleted and it's giving us option of add and remove. Just use git remove and give the file name. Okay, now you can do git status again and you see that this is in staging area now. Just commit contribution. Now type git status again. Now you can see that there's nothing to commit and our working tree is clean. Okay, now let's see how to rename a file. So let's rename our readme file to contribution file. Now let's type git status and you check like it's already renamed from readme to contribution.mp5. One thing to notice here, git don't explicitly track rename file. So you have to pass git move command like this. Okay, let's commit this code. Now let's type git status again and our working directory is clean, and let's see the history that we already commit our file. Often you have files you don't want Git to track and don't want you to show as an untracked file. In real life, when we build our project, it generates a lot of files that we don't want Git to track and don't display as an untracked file. Let's see how to do that. Okay, let's create a bin folder and let's add some file inside bin folder. Okay, let's now type git status again and you will see that bin folder is untracked. So suppose we don't want to track this folder. Let's create git ignore file. Okay, now let's type bin. Okay, now do git status again. You will see that untracked file is only git ignore. Now you are not going to see bin folder because we already told git to ignore bin folder. So whenever you have to ignore something, you need git ignore file and you have to add there. So let's first commit this git ignore file. Let's see the status, it's in staging area or not. Okay, it's in staging area. Let's commit our code. On branch name, nothing to commit. Now suppose you want Git to track bin folder, but you don't want to track any file that have end extension txt. Let's see how to do that. Let's open our git ignore file again. Now let's type anything under bin folder having any name but extension txt. Just ignore this. Let's see now. Let's type git status again and you will see that modified git ignore because we have only one file inside bin folder which is .txt. Let's add one more file. Now type git status again and you will see that now bin folder is untracked. Let's stage everything, and when you type git status again, you will see that modified git ignored and new file bin test.java, but you don't see .text file, ignored.text file that we added because we asked it to ignore that file. Okay, let's commit this code now. Okay, now check status again and our working directory is clean. Now you learn a lot about all the Git basic commands. In next video, we will learn how to work with remotes. We will create our GitHub account and we see how to pull and push code from remote server. Don't worry if you didn't catch up with all these commands yet. Throughout this series, we are going to use these commands a lot and we'll learn in detail.